Hello. Does this work? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. So I have to start because this talk was originally an hour, and after applying for this nice conference, I learned that I only have 25 minutes. So I will definitely speak faster. There might be no QA, but I will be around. So yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining. I'm really happy to talk about my complaints and about my sad adventures I had over the last years. I will not start with a thank you slide, but I will start with a forward-looking statement, which basically just covers that whatever you hear today is my personal experience, my personal opinion, and even if I might blame one or the other vendors, it's just me personal. All the things I mention, all these tools we talk about, they are great, they have their value, and it's just my personal experience. So anyway, my name is Roman. I'm a freelancer, and sometimes I also like to found some companies. I have a life before Salesforce, which is great. I started as a software developer 20 years ago, but then I fall in love with Salesforce, and most of the time I really love it. I work as a Salesforce architect / developer, something in between, and I usually work on projects where I'm the master of restoration, which means that my clients, they typically call me when they need me, and I'm a little bit like this guy sometimes. If you don't know him, that's fine, because then you don't need me, and you hopefully never need me. But in case you need me, you might recognize who this is. So, when I work on these projects, I'm a one-man show, and I usually have to also handle the deployment in most of my projects. And whenever I do this, I call these deployment parties. But you can imagine that these are very, very boring and sad parties where I basically sit in my office. I can't even drink a beer because I have to focus on all this stuff. And today, I want to talk about these things. First of all, we will shortly cover what I need, what I want, what my personal requirements are. We have to shortly talk about different deployment methods so that nobody can blame me. We then talk about change sets, we talk about third-party vendors, and in the end, we will hopefully also talk about automated pipelines. So, this is my personal wish list. This is what I expect from a deployment tool to provide me in order to work sufficiently and to make successful deployments, but to also have a little fun, right? 8 little things. First of all, configuration code. Obviously, a deployment solution has to handle everything which we do in our sandboxes. It has to work for bigger projects, but also for smaller changes in between, right? We all know this. We are working on our user stories in the middle of a sprint, and then the client calls, and he has an immediate thing which has to be done. So whatever solution I use has to handle both of them. One of the most important requirements for myself is time consumption. I really hate to wait. And this is so annoying because waiting time is lost time, but waiting time is often not long enough that you can start something useful in between. So in my world, deployments have to be very fast. Stability, of course, right? It has to be stable, it has to be error-free, and it has to work. Cost is a very big topic, at least for most of my clients. There are great solutions out there which cost money, they are worth every cent, but it would be great if we don't spend that much money. This is one of the most annoying things for me, customers messing around in production, which means that you do a deployment and then you get a bad call from your client who says, I added a field yesterday, where is it? And I'm like, yeah, well, thanks for telling me, why do you mess around? Sandbox synchronization, also very important, right? Specifically in the bigger projects where we work, we sometimes have dozens of sandboxes which have to be kept in sync. And it would be nice, that's not for me specifically, but it would be nice if it's also easy to use. I can handle command line, I'm more than happy with that, but I know that there are release managers out there who might prefer a nice, visual, appealing solution. So, with that said, let's rapidly fast talk about 2 different ways of deploying. First of all, package-based deployments. I know that they are there. I love them. I try to use them. They have tons of advantages. They have some disadvantages, specifically in my world, where I basically join existing projects. And you can imagine you have a very unhappy customer. There was already lots of money burned, and there's no time to streamline the existing environment in order to make it possible to recreate useful packages out of that. So I'm asking myself, who is using packages anyway, right? At least in our real, if we are not a software vendor, I barely see real packages out there. So the second one, this is the most used one, right? We have org-based deployments, which means we have a sandbox or several sandboxes, and then we deploy from source to target to target to target. It's familiar for us. They are built in Salesforce tools to do that. It has a minimal learning curve. It's still annoying, right? It has a lack of advanced features. I really hate them. I hate that they are not there. It's complex to handle, specifically when you have huge deployments, and you most of the time have limited control. So this is really annoying. I really hate it. I spend hours under the shower to cry. But there is a twist, right? You can do org-based deployments and you can introduce Git. I will not talk about Git specifically today because this will definitely explode the call here. Lots of advantages, right? You have enhanced version control, which is awesome. You can collaborate more easily. You can work together in teams. And honestly, coming from a software developer background, it just feels good, right? It feels correct, and this is the way how it should be. Anyway, so it's still confusing, so let's jump into it, right? First of all, we have deployments using change sets, right? I think everybody knows change sets. I touched them about 7 years, 8 years ago last time when I started with Salesforce. I was like, are you serious, guys? This is what we all have to do? Yeah? So obviously, we will definitely not talk about change sets today because this is way too painful and I already suffer a lot. So, change sets. I mean, you see all the red crosses here. I will just mention some highlights, right? I mean, bigger projects, deployments, forget about it with change sets. You get insanely crazy with that. It's very difficult, at least for me, to find the stuff. You have this crazy pick list where you always have to scroll up and down, and it's not even ordered alphabetically. I mean, come on, guys. Finding dependencies is hell. There's a little button, add dependency, and then it will basically just add the complete org, yeah, which is insane. If you don't have a life, have fun. Yeah, I mean, sometimes people love to suffer, yeah. So you always miss some parts. It will always fail. Whatever you do, just even if you deploy a single field, it will fail. You have to wait for the bad call on a Monday morning. Forget about synchronization, and yeah, easy of use. I mean, we don't have to talk about this. So there are tools out there, and I specifically choose Gearset, but it doesn't matter. You can also use Copado and all the other vendors out there. Based on the license model, Gearset works best for me because I can work with different clients and different projects. What we can see here, rapidly short, and hopefully you can also read that, right? This is a typical comparison screen from Gearset, comparing, and this time, funny enough, from production to UAT, but forget about this. You have a nice UI. You have changed items, new items, etc., and you have this very cool comparison screen here at the bottom, which gets better and better over time because you can also select different pieces of your deployment, and you can take care that you then don't destroy the target. So if you do org-to-org based deployments, this is highly recommended. I really love it. It's also very easy to actually handle any dependencies because they do a very good job. They also have the summary here in between where they provide warnings and automated fixes and stuff. They also have this code quality improvements, right? And as you can see, they're zero found because we are good developers. They also have a very nice feature, which I really love, is you can specify tests to run. Honestly, I don't like it. In when I have pipelines, I want all tests to run and I want to fail. I want them to fail very, very fast in the beginning of my pipeline and not when I'm in front of production. But when you do org-to-org based deployments, this one is actually nice because it more or less automatically tries to discover which unit tests have to run. And if you have nice unit tests, then this one will work out fine. But have you recognized something here? This is the screen again, right? Have you seen something? It has this nice little thing here at the column, right? You see names here. That's me. That's a colleague of mine, and I really like that because you can easily see. Okay, what did I change, right? Besides from the unknown stuff, this is Salesforce related, but this thing was hell in the past. Before I recognized that names in production and sandbox are the same. So if there is a change in production, you will not see this. You don't recognize that this change hasn't been done by your colleague or hasn't been done by someone in production or in the sandbox. What I want to say, I have lots of more examples, but in matter of time, I just picked this one. There are still issues where you really have to take care, even if you have a very, very cool tool like Gearset, you always have to take care, and it gets difficult to actually handle this. And of course, things are still failing, right? I took a very bad example because in the sandbox there was email delivery switched off. But what I like about this one is that you get a really nice overview of what happened, and you can easily fix the stuff. So this is actually nice, and then you just go back, you restart the comparison, and that's fine. So with that said, deployments using Gearset, let's compare it again, right? It works awesomely well. Yeah, this is a really, really, really big plus. When the comparison is finally done, I mean, if you have a very big org, if you have a very big comparison, you can grab a cup of coffee and you can smoke several cigarettes, which is nice for me, but not for everyone. But when the comparison is done, it gets rapidly fast, which is nice. But comparison is so slow. I think this is not about to blame Gearset. This is a matter of Salesforce. I'm not sure. I don't know the technical details. But I think this is a matter of Salesforce. But still, it's slow, right? So I want to get this thing done. What they really have, what I really enjoy about org-to-org based deployment is you can easily roll it back, which is nice. This stuff is expensive. Yeah, I use it. I let my customers pay for that, so that's fine. You have to think about it. Is it worth the money? I would say yes. If you have the money, spend it definitely. If you are somewhere in between, when you have release management, but you don't have pipelines and all this stuff, maybe this is too technical for you, then this is definitely a very good choice. Customers messing around in production, yes, it's actually a plus, but it's also a minus, right? Because you still have to be aware of that. And obviously they have a very nice and easy to use interface. So, and then Gearset came around the corner, I don't know, 1.5 years, 2 years ago, with pipelines. And I was like, oh, wow, pipelines. I remember the good old days working with Jenkins and Java projects, and pipelines are awesome. So they came around with something like this. And that's a real world customer project where I hopefully hided all the names successfully, I don't know. So we have some sandboxes here on the left side. These are our developer sandbox, a team member, myself, and I also had Roman Dev, but when you delete a sandbox, you can't use the same name, so this is Roman Dettel. And this is actually the client, right? I convinced the client, okay, if you want to mess around, you get your own sandbox and you work there, and they do it, and this is awesomely well, right? So then we have an SIT sandbox where we basically synchronize all this stuff. This is where my unit tests run the first time, even if it takes time, but I save a lot of time because I immediately recognize that something is failing, and not only here. So this is UAT, obviously, right? Production, and then we have hotfixes. It's really nice. Yeah, it really works out well. You also have all these cool things here because obviously Git is involved, right? So you can easily see what has changed. You have a connection to Jira. You can easily jump into your Git branches and you can take a look around there what has actually happened, right? It's really, really, really good until it fails. It's not Gearset's fault, right? I mean, deployments fail, yeah, and they made a very, very good job. So they provide a validation summary here. They make it as easy as possible, but still, you now have to switch again, right? Because in most of the cases where we have these issues, it's about merge conflicts. So we again have to go back to Visual Studio or IntelliJ. We have to download all the stuff. We have to do lots of manual things. I think it's not Gearset's fault, but it's still messy and still difficult. So. But as you can see, things are getting more and more green, right? Deployments using Gearset plus pipelines. Yes, it is expensive. We already covered that. But you can have back deployments with a single click. That's nice. I actually want to get rid of this last single click, but yes, I think we could automate this. Sandbox synchronization, also just a single click. That's nice. You can easily introduce lots of sandboxes, which makes our life way more easy. So overall, we are getting closer, right? So. I already have to laugh because I was thinking, okay, maybe someone would mention actually, yeah, but there's DevOps Center. Yes, there is. But when this came out, I don't know, 2 years ago, something, I can't remember. I was really, really excited because I thought, okay, maybe this is cool. Maybe I can get rid of Gearset. So I was looking around and I was configuring it, and I wanted to start with it, and then I created a Bitbucket repository and configured everything, and then I figured out, oh, this stuff only works with GitHub. Okay, good. Well, okay, created a GitHub account, did the same thing again, and then I made it up and running, and I was like, yeah, well, no, forget about it. So I never touched it again. So sorry, DevOps Center developers, if you made a good job meanwhile. Okay, I'm happy with that, but I will never use it again. Comparison, very painful. Somehow it tried to automatically cover all the needed changes, and this automation was kind of crazy for me. Let's not talk about hotfixes at all. It was way more difficult to identify my own deployables, so it remembered me a lot about change sets. I'm not sure if there are already rollbacks. I mean, over the last years, I might have a rollback once a year, maybe twice a year. Yeah, I mean, you can do this manually. If you deployed something and broke something, you can do it manually, but this is something which I really like about Gearset. There's a single click and you roll all the stuff back, and then you at least gain some time. It's free of cost. which is nice. Extra cost, right? Thank you, Salesforce. So I think you can handle this customer stuff outside of DevOps Center somehow, but as I said, I don't like it. So this is very personal. So automation. What I really want to achieve is, in the end, when I'm done with the user story, I want to create a pull request, and then all the magic happens automatically. Because in most cases, deployments just work, right? And I don't want to mess around. I don't want to click somewhere. I don't want to wait on something. I just want to create the pull request, or maybe merge it, and then I want to go home and finally have beer. So we can either save some money, or we can spend a lot of money, but in any case, we might still bleed, right? So, but what do we have already? I mean, we already have all the ingredients, right? We know the metadata, we have all the tools available, like SFTX and its friends. So why can't we have our own Git-based pipelines in Bitbucket or GitHub or Azure or whatever you prefer? So can we finally talk about real DevOps, like in the real world outside of Salesforce, right? This wouldn't be nice. This would be nice. So yeah, of course we can, right? So I just recently joined a project where they have this. They use Azure, and they have these deployment pipelines in Azure, however they are called. And then they have this huge repository with FB. I first thought this is Facebook, but I think this means feature branch or something. And then they have all these branches here, and they are very, very old, so 2021. And I was like, why do you have all these branches still there? Didn't you merge them yet? And they said, yeah, we do. But our implementation partners, no names mentioned here, they said we have to keep them. Okay, good. Yeah, then we do this, right? Why not? But anyway, they have these pipelines already. So whenever I create a branch, which I then merge and not close, some pipelines will start running for an integration sandbox, for UAT sandbox, and then obviously also for a production sandbox. Lots of clicks involved. Anyway, it works. You still have to change in the pipeline script which they have, you have to add the unit tests manually. So every time you want to deploy something, I said, can't we just run all unit tests because that would be good? No, we don't do that. Just add the unit tests in the pipeline script and commit it directly to master. Okay, I can do that. And then there was this funny thing. Because I did my first deployment then with this client, I understood how they work. I still don't understand why they do this. But anyway, I did my first deployment to production. And I called the customer, I wrote the customer an email and I said, okay, well, I'm done. This is in production now. Have a good evening. Bye. And then the next morning he was asking me, yeah, well, there's nothing in production. And I said, yeah, but I used your pipeline. I deployed it. And he said, yeah, but did you click the quick deployment button in the end? And I was like, what? I can't even remember what a click deployment button is, right? So I had to Google this or ask ChatGPT, yeah, but yeah, you have to press the quick deployment button. Okay, good. So this is not real DevOps, right? So, and then the future might be bright. Yeah, just recently, and I think that SFTX Harriers by Nicolas and his team is around for several years also, right? I'm not sure. I just recently discovered it because the world is so big of all these deployment tools. And I personally think I finally found something which might work, right? It's an SFTX plugin. Go to Nicolas. He will explain all the details because I don't have that time. It comes with a very nice, or with a yeah, it's nice, right? It's an acceptable, thank you, user interface, which is completely integrated into Visual Studio. I personally hate Visual Studio. This will be my next talk. But anyway, I can use it, and specifically also all these release managers can use it because I think they're used to Visual Studio, at least on this level, right? It's very easy. You just configure it, you start a new task, you work on your task, you pull the changes, you save and publish, bam, and then you go, which is nice. Just some clicks. It comes with pre-configured pipeline scripts for almost GitHub, Bitbucket, Azure, GitLab, I guess, right? You can easily extend them to your needs, right? So for example, I'm a big fan of Slack, so I also integrated tons of Slack messages, which is nice. And then this stuff just runs. It also has lots of other things like Megalinter included and all these things. And I think we are getting way closer to what I want to achieve, right? I want to create a pull request, I want to merge it, and then I want to have a beer. So with that said, final comparison here, and then I'm actually almost done, which is great. So configuration and code, yeah, obviously it works well, right? There was a thing, it might become difficult for these in-between tasks, but one of the biggest advantages about open source, which I really love, is I could just reach out to Nicholas. I asked him, right? I wrote him a Slack message, I think in the middle of the night, and I asked him about this. And even in the middle of the night, maybe he also had a beer already, I don't know. He answered me, and I think it was really an issue. It was a little bug or something. I can't remember. But anyway, he fixed it very fast. Yeah. So the deployables are very easy to identify, and it's way faster because you just, I can't remember this, retrieve, I don't know. Anyway, you just retrieve your changes using regular tools under the hood like SFTX and stuff, and then you have this nice little list in your Git client, and then you basically just select the stuff you want to deploy, and then off you go, right? Stability of deployments, yes, it still depends on you, but it's in my own experience now. I use SFTX hardest in 2 or 3 projects. You still have to focus, obviously, right? But you only have to focus actually when you prepare the commit to the Git repository, right? You have to select the correct things, and sometimes you don't want to select all these things, but you have to do the same with Gearset anyway. So I love open source, of course, and from my point of view, it has an easy-to-use interface, and you can even work on command line, which is way better for me. So with that said, almost last slide. My own deployment adventure, it has been a roller coaster of emotions, really. Yeah, I suffered a lot. Yeah, I was really annoyed so many times. But to be honest, I mean, as I told you in the beginning, I'm more or less a one-man show, which means that all of these things I do myself. Big teams, big companies out there, they might have their own teams. They have their release managers, they have their own departments, and then they came around with a solution like this one in Azure, which I showed you. There's one guy sitting there. He gets paid the whole day to click the quick deployment button, right? This is insane. There is a lack of documentation. There's not a single trusted source which covers all these things. There are books out there, there are websites, there are blogs, LinkedIn, Salesforce, Ben, whatever. But I'm really missing a single book or something where I can relate on and where I can be sure, okay, this is the way to go and this covers everything. There are promising approaches, of course, right? There are tons of helpful people out there, which is the most important thing. There are awesome tools like SFTX Harders, Delivery Cloud, Cumulus CI, and even, of course, Gearset and Copado and all the others, right? But there is still no 100% automation. So I like to complain about stuff, but maybe I should stop bothering about this and maybe focusing on working on these things to get it better. And if there's no 100% automation, yeah, well, then I might have to live with that. So that's it. Thank you.